Hello everyone, welcome to this video with the weekly update for the 26th of July, where we're going to be recapping what's taken place over the weekend in Houston for the Flight Sim Expo. And buckle up because there's quite a bit of news. Not necessarily revolutionary news for us, but there is quite a bit to go through. So we'll start out with the two simulators, Microsoft and P3D. So Microsoft 2024, I covered in the last video the shock announcement of the new simulator, which is based on Microsoft 2020, but is essentially going to be somewhat of a redesign. So it's not an entirely new simulator out of nowhere, but it is surprising, at least it was when they announced it, that they were going to be making this new simulator based off of this current simulator, because we've only kind of just got into a rhythm with Microsoft 2020, but they're releasing a new product. The cynical side of us might say, well, business model and things like that. And ultimately, P3D do this as well. Every kind of 4 or 5 years, they were releasing new versions, maybe even less intervals in the beginning of P3D. So it kind of makes sense. I mean, there's no subscription model necessarily other than Game Pass, so a lot of people who bought it would have only purchased it once and that would have been it. Did it really need to be a whole new simulator? Well, they're really emphasizing some of the big changes that they've made, and we'll go through them. I think it probably could have been an update to the existing simulator, but as I say, in terms of a business model, they're going to hype this up, and it does look as though there are some significant changes anyway. So what sort of things are going to be included? They talked about the fact that they wanted to inject more activities to support the average gamer, because they felt that that was something people really enjoyed, and that whilst hardcore simmers might enjoy flying realistic aircraft, gamers would enjoy the activities and the missions, and so they've added some more there. But they did emphasize that there's also airliner missions, and they're adding things to do with fuel and payload to make sure that there are activities and missions that are realistic enough that people who maybe like us fly the third-party aircraft and stuff will actually be able to enjoy them as well. They also touched on airliners, so they said that more airliners will be included with MSFS, and that they've partnered with various developers for this. The Beluga, for example, that I talked about, there's been discussion as to whether that was from Ini builds. They have said that it wasn't, but Microsoft have said that there's going to be other airliners included. And so we look forward to kind of those announcements and to see what sort of airliners will be included by default with, you would imagine, pretty good systems. They talk about this being a complete redesign of the sim. Again, it's difficult to know. Of course, they're going to say that if it's a new product that they want people to purchase, they're not going to say it's just an incremental update. They talk about smart update installations. So one of the things, of course, that you will know is with Microsoft, if you launch it, often you'll get an update, and that will be maybe a 25 gig update or something like that, and you have to download it all, and it takes up a lot of space and time. And what they said was, realistically, the amount of that update, in terms of the world updates especially, that a user is actually going to see when they're flying around, is severely limited. So using a smart update feature, it's going to limit what it downloads depending on whether it thinks it actually needs to be on your PC. Quite how that works, I have no idea. Maybe it detects your regular flying patterns, I don't know. But anyway, point is, you're not going to have to download as much material whenever you experience an update. They talk about improved physics engines, particularly with reference to soft body physics, so things like hot air balloons, although they did mention that other airliners would be able to take advantage. And then they go on to say that these kind of features are optional, and so it will not be necessary for aircraft that are existing to immediately implement them, and those aircraft should be backwards compatible. It's an optional set of features that developers can take advantage of. They talk about electrical, fuel, pneumatic and hydraulic systems getting updates. They talk about ground improvements, textures. They talk about tessellation of ground improvements. That is quite interesting. It means your aircraft will interact with the ground. So, for example, with tire tracks in the snow and things like that. That's pretty cool. Dynamic world effects with seasons and season transitions. Dynamic life with animals. They put a lot of emphasis on cows, which I thought was funny. This was quite an interesting one. Live worldwide ship traffic. That's pretty cool. I mean, not that we're really that interested or going to be able to view that, but yeah, I thought it was cool. They're pulling live world ship traffic, and it's actually going to be in the correct positions. And that was really it. So, you know, is there anything major in there for blind flight simulator pilots? Not really. But it's just, you know, an interesting update, and there was nothing, of course, about accessibility, which was expected, and they're not going to put that in that kind of presentation. But you know, we'll have to wait and see. But an interesting update nonetheless. Let's move on to P3D version 6, which is releasing in July. This is in many ways even less revolutionary than Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 for us. They talk about lighting updates. The main thing, I guess, for us is they talk about default airport generation getting a significant update. Now, we'll have to wait and see whether that means the airport layouts in terms of gates and things are actually better, or whether it's a purely visual change. From what people have said looking at the trailer, especially those who are in Microsoft, they're still nowhere near visually pleasing enough, but if they can update the airport layouts to have the correct terminals and stuff, that would be great, because even on version 5 it's still not great at all. They also mentioned that it will be backward compatible, so aircraft shouldn't necessarily need an update. Whether there'll need to be some small tweaks, we don't know, but you know, in theory, PMDG and everything that we use in P3D should still work. But I would say be careful. Don't just go, oh, I'm uninstalling version 5 or version 4 or whatever you're running, and I'm getting version 6. Just hold your fire until we know. They also talk about the update procedure. So, of course, currently you have to go onto their website and download either the client or whatever you want to update, or you can grab the full installer. They now talk about an automatic update procedure. So that's nice. That'll be useful. They also talk about the partnership with the Unreal company with their Unreal Visual Engine. This kind of hints that there may be future versions of P3D still in the works, version 7 perhaps, but version 6 does not take advantage of this Unreal Visual Engine. There was also changes as in the licensing, which kind of also points to the fact that P3D and Lockheed Martin are well aware that the user base is shifting away from them and toward Microsoft. The prices of the commercial versions of P3D were also changed and adjusted quite a bit up. This, you know, it demonstrates they know full well that Microsoft is beating them out of the water, and they know full well that the average home simmer is not going to use P3D, and they are adjusting accordingly, and this is kind of what their user base is becoming now, more commercial, especially. But we'll have to see what comes with version 7. In terms of version 6, you know, nothing revolutionary. Let's move on to Honeycomb's announcements then. The Honeycomb presentation had a lot of information in it. The first thing they talked about were the Delta flight displays. Now, these are touchscreen flight displays that you can connect up and will work with various modes on various planes. Not going to be helpful for us. The Honeycomb Alpha yoke has now been discontinued, though. That is an interesting piece of news, because they now have a Honeycomb Alpha Lite and Alpha Pro. The Alpha Lite will be $199.99, and it will essentially be very similar to the Pro, although it will have less quality or lesser quality of sensors and less sensors within it. So, you know, if you're looking for a Honeycomb yoke, I mean, it's still $200, so still not cheap, but a lot better than it was. Then the Pro will be $299.99, and that will have more significant body of sensors within it, and it will also obviously be a better quality of sensor. But I think for most user cases, the Lite will be perfectly acceptable. The Pro kind of seems to be a relaunch of the current Alpha yoke, while the Lite is a slightly downscaled version. They talk about flat packs for the Honeycomb Bravo for the Airbus models and the Boeing models. So you'll know if you have a Bravo that on the very right side there is a flap lever. However, it does not have detents, and so it's not really usable for us because we don't know when we push it up or down where we are pushing it to. Well, they're now giving out, or not giving out, I wish they were giving them out for free. They're now selling essentially specifically designed levers that will also come with detents within them, so that you will be able to have them for whatever aircraft you are flying. And they talk about, some aircraft like the 787 will not have them available because of the slightly odd design of the 787 flap system. But they will be available for most aircraft, and they will be $29.99. Very well worth it, I would say, in my opinion. I'm definitely going to get one of those for some of the Boeings. They talk about they now have a Honeycomb USB hub, which will be $49.99, and it will have 6 USB-A ports connected to the PC via one USB-C connection. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure why you would buy a USB hub specifically from Honeycomb, but I'm sure it'll be good quality, and it's something you could at least bundle with your other stuff if you get various products from them. They talk about the Charlie rudder pedals, which have been delayed again till probably Q1 2024 due to supplier issues. And they talk about the Lima flight chair, which is supposed to simulate a flight deck chair, shipping in October 2023 to customers. So that's interesting. They talk about a Flight Sim Academy educational program that they are launching, which, yeah, this is kind of interesting as well. Not entirely clear on what this is all about. So they mention that it will be a STEM program with 30 locations in 5 years, using next-gen aviation facilities, using their own simulator programs and hardware to encourage students into flight sim, and I guess ultimately aviation in general in the real world, working with teachers and students. So yeah, I mean, that's interesting. It will be free and it'll be funded by Honeycomb. So I mean, that's not something we've ever seen before, and that's really great to see. Quite how it will work in terms of the logistics remains to be seen. In terms of equipment, staying on that thread, I thought I'd point this out as well. The Allied Cockpit Equipment Group, who I've never heard of, announced a 737 MIP master interface, which is essentially apparently a board that controls the instrument panel on the 737. Modules have to be bought separately though for this, from a manufacturer who I've also never heard of, called CISPO Solutions, and it will be $339.15 for this board, and then you have to buy the modules. They talk about it being frame rate friendly and easy to use, and it will soon work with the PMDG and P3D and Microsoft, although it doesn't currently. Yeah, so another thing, I mean, there's so many of these kind of things around, control panels, FMCs for the 737 in particular, but another one maybe to look at Allied Cockpit Solutions. Probably the most exciting thing that I heard about, courtesy initially of Andy and Jason, who of course they're giving their TFM presentation and who've actually given us a bit of info on this and chatted with the devs of this particular program, and hopefully they had a great weekend there and the TFM presentation went well. So this is the Beyond ATC program for Microsoft Flight Sim 2020 and eventually for 2024. The slogan of this program seems to be "We will not crash you into mountains," which is a very basic requirement, but some ATC programs fail to do even that. The exciting thing is that this uses, especially it seems 11 labs voices, but they talk about specifically just AI voices, so we'll need an active internet connection, but regional voices that will vary significantly. It talks about having voice recognition, which is very exciting. It's not the first to have that, but I hope it's implemented slightly better than some of these other programs like Vox ATC and stuff that have it. So you will actually be able to speak to the ATC. It will have correct FAA approved phraseology, and if you watch the promo video you can actually hear how the phraseology changes. There's an example given in London's airspace, there's a couple of US examples, and the phraseology seems to differ and is correct, which is great because essentially generally ATC programs that we have currently just have very generic phraseology that doesn't change, and then people go on a VATSIM and they realize that actually the phraseology is very different depending on where you are in the world, and there are different things you need to include, for example when requesting a clearance or reading back a clearance or anything like that, and it intimidates people. Well, this will give you a chance to practice with AI ATC, speaking to ATC and getting responses, and it also says that they will get irritated with you if you ask for the wrong thing at the wrong time. So yeah, get prepared to be yelled at by AI ATC, but a great training tool. No release date was given, although they do have a website and they say that more info will be revealed in the coming months. Yeah, really excited for Beyond ATC. I think that's going to be one of the best things, a tool for training on VATSIM, and also a great thing to use in regions where VATSIM ATC is often not on at the correct time for you, and it looks as though they're going to be using correct procedures. So I think that's really exciting. It's really needed. It does say it will work with AI traffic solutions such as FSLTL. So again, hopefully that's slightly better implemented than current ATC programs. Really excited. Beyond ATC is probably the thing that I was really looking forward to from this weekend's announcements, and Andy and Jason did speak with them and they seemed really interested in accessibility. Obviously, given the fact that it's got voice recognition, the majority of it seems like it will be easily accessible anyway, but of course we need to know about the kind of interface and any settings and stuff. But apparently, according to Andy and Jason, they seemed willing to work with us as a community and to perform testing and make sure that things that need to be accessible are accessible. So I think that's going to be kind of a great ATC solution for us. Shame it's not coming to P3D, I guess, but everything's moving to Microsoft, isn't it? So as soon as we get them damn heavy planes in Microsoft that we need from PMDG, then P3D, I think, at least for me, will just take a back seat, but it's still there because of the planes is holding it up. That's going to do it. This was probably a longer video than usual for the weekly update videos, but there was a significant amount of news to get through. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next weekly update video, whenever that happens to be. No TFM news as of this week, of course, because Andy and Jason were at the expo, and First Officer is still working on version 5. There's no news from him either. See you next week.